everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of my Learn in 30. This time we're talking about leg action once again, but in the Latin American dances. So we've got 5 Latin American dances to look at. The cha-cha and the rumba have a very similar movement across their dancing in the base actions. The samba is quite unique. The jive again is quite different. And the paso doble also has its own distinct look and feel and way in which you would move from foot to foot. So we'll look at the basic actions in the cha-cha and the rumba to start with, and how your legs should work to make your dancing more beautiful. Basic actions in the rumba and the cha-cha are essentially centered around a walk, a movement forward, backwards, left or right. So that's what we're going to look at to start with. So walking forwards or moving the leg forwards in the cha-cha or the rumba is pretty much the same. The ending of the cha-cha, of course, is different. You'll have a cha-cha-cha action, but the process to get to that is the same in both dances. So I think at this stage you all know that in Latin American we have much straighter legs than we do in the ballroom dances. Now in ballroom we've always got soft knees, soft joints, ready to use them to produce leverage and movement. The Latin's slightly different. So we're going to have locked legs, strong locked straight legs at certain times. So it gives it a distinct look, difference of course. So it's very different of course to the ballroom movement. So to start with, we're going to start here on 2 straight legs, and I'm just going to move forwards. So I'm standing on my left leg, it's nice and straight. I've got my nice skinny jeans on today so that you can see the movements beautifully, easily. I haven't got any Latin trousers anymore, of course, or Latin dance shoes, so you'd have to make do with these ones. So I'm on a nice straight left leg. Now, when I move forward, the right leg is going to go forward now. I'm going to pull. I feel like I pull backwards through the standing leg, which is this one. I'm pulling back and I feel like a bow and arrow feeling as I'm moving. So the left hip's going to go out. I'm then going to bring the knee of the moving leg forward. And then the whole leg itself goes out in front. And then I transfer weight from the back leg to the front leg. Nice and smoothly. 2 straight legs at this point. I'll do it the other way around. So I'm standing on the left leg. I'm going to drop into my hip on my left leg here. If I do it this way around, you'll be able to see better actually with the hip action, hopefully. So I drop the weight into that hip. This leg is staying straight. I feel like I push the leg backwards almost as well. I relax into that hip, and in doing so, I release the heel of my moving leg. And as the other leg passes, so as the left leg is beginning to pass the right leg, the tip of the toes in contact with the floor, the heel's nice and high, the knee is very, very bent here. Of course, you can see hopefully that sharp angle between my legs. So I've pushed this hip down, I've relaxed this knee forward, and then that leg straightens, it goes out in front of me. I haven't transferred my weight yet. The leg's ready for my body weight, and I push from this foot a little bit more to transfer the weight fully onto my front leg. And then of course, if I was doing continuous walks, which is a rumba action, a continuous walk action, or you can do it in cha-cha too, the whole process would happen again on the next leg. So I transfer weight, and then I would relax into the hip, the knee comes through, and then the leg ready to move forward again into another forward action. If you have bent knees as you do this, so if you dance if your knees are soft as you're walking through, or just walk through like this, it looks a bit lazy and not great, does it? It's got no definition to it. So the important thing here is to ensure that you've got one leg straight at any given time. Often you'll have 2 straight legs, but the leg you're standing on, the leg that your weight is on, is always straight in rumba and cha-cha. There are very few exceptions, but across the basic figures and the base actions, which is essentially what we're looking at here, you're going to have that leg straight for sure. And if a leg is gesturing, so I call this a gesture. So when I take the leg out in front of me, I gesture it. Behind me, it's the same sort of thing as well. When the leg is in that position, being gestured, I feel that leg is straight too, because I want to show a nice strong leg line through my free leg, as well as having a nice strong standing leg as well. So this just in static position just makes me look better than if my knees were soft. In comparison, if I was doing something like that in ballroom, as the leg goes out, the leg I'm stood on is beginning to flex, ready to give me some power, which ultimately will turn into body flight in this instance. So there's no body flight as such in cha-cha and rumba, so we don't need to worry about that. We're not going to pitch our weight forward or backwards. We're just going to work the legs underneath the body. And as I said before, I feel very much as the legs are passing here, it's like a bow and arrow action. So I feel as though that this is the strong piece of wood, let's say, the bow, and then this is the string that I'm pinging backwards. It's in reverse, of course, but you get the visual idea. That's the idea I'm trying to produce. And then that leg goes out in front of me, ready for my weight to transfer onto it. Moving backwards in that in that context. So the same process actually, but it's just in reverse completely. So again, I'm standing on a beautifully straight, strong left leg here. The right leg's out in front of me. I bend the knee, so it's the knee that's the first thing that works. I pick that knee up, and I feel like my toes are like lead. I feel like very, very heavy in contact with the floor. So as I pick my knee up, my foot stays in contact. That leg then passes on behind, underneath my body, behind me, gets into position before I then transfer weight fully onto it. And as I may have discussed with you before, I want to ensure that my center weight moves completely onto that foot, so that I'm nicely lined up over my right leg. So I'm completely balanced on the right foot here. You don't want to get caught in this sort of position where you've got a little bit of weight in the front leg and in the back leg, because now actually you're in no man's land and you're going to be off balance. And as you can see, my weight's gone backwards. So again, this is the same as I talked about in episode 5 with the leg action in the ballroom. Whenever you move backwards in any dance, you've always got to keep your weight forwards, because again, the way we're designed, our legs and joints and everything like that, we're designed to be forward facing and forward moving. We've got no way of dealing with excess weight going backwards behind us, because our joints are all designed to carry weight going this way, you see. So once your weight gets past your foot, you're in big trouble. So the only way you can balance that or deal with it is to grab hold of a partner, fall over. That's a great way of dealing with it. If you fall over, then you're not off balance anymore, are you? You're literally flat on the floor. Or you stumble and take extra steps to recover. And again, you don't want to do that in Latin or ballroom, anything really, because it doesn't look very good. So yes, so the leg goes out behind you, the leg gets to its full extent before you then transfer weight onto it, and you move your center, so belly button really, keep your belly button moving backwards so that you are nicely balanced over that back leg, which is the right one here, and I can lift my left foot off the floor. You could have a succession of steps backwards, and the process is going to be the same on both legs. You get the weight transferred, then you pick up the knee, you relax to the hip as well, so the whole process starts with a hip relaxation. It's the hip action. So there's a relaxation into the standing leg, which is the signal for the whole process to start. So we've always got these hip actions going on in Latin, particularly in cha-cha and rumba. I feel it's a bit more obvious in rumba and cha-cha, where you have a settling of weight into the standing leg, through the standing leg, and it comes out of the hip. If the knee's locked, you see, so my knee's locked, the ankle's locked as well here, there's only one place for your weight to go, and it has to go out of your hip. So if you relax into that leg, the weight has to come out of the hip. So it instantly produces a hip action. I haven't got to try to manufacture that. Now that also then, I feel, releases my other leg to come underneath me, because at this point here, there's not as much space. If I relax that hip, I feel as though it encourages the free leg to come underneath, ready to move forwards or to come backwards. Going forward, I feel is easier. I do feel this is an easier, more natural feeling. A backward action in rumba and cha-cha doesn't feel quite so natural, again for the reasons I've already outlined previously about us being designed to go forwards. So it's important to emphasize I've got laces on. If you're a lady dancer, you may not have laces unless you're doing this in a practice shoe or something, but you might have a T-bar on your Latin sandal or something similar. I always feel that I lead with that part of my foot as I go forwards. So not only am I, as I said before, picking up the knee, I'm leading with the laces of my shoe before I then get the foot in front of me to stand on. Going backwards, it's the same sort of thing. I'm leaving my laces behind. I'm really lifting them and pronouncing them before I move backwards. What that does, it produces this nice action through the ankles. And these, as I've said many times before, angles and curves are beautiful. It creates these beautiful angles through your body for you then to showcase the action through your legs and feet. So that creates this a beautiful leg action. And it looks almost like the leg is peeling and sliding beautifully through space rather than something like that. Because it's quite easy to be told, of course, in Latin, you don't go forward on your heels in the rumba and cha-cha. So to slide your feet, of course, that's a great way to ensure you don't do the wrong footwork. But it doesn't necessarily look as good as it could. So a ball flat footwork here it actually starts as a very tip of the toe as the leg comes through before you then move it in front of you to become the ball flat. So it's important to understand the process and where you've got to know where you're starting and where you're finishing, but you mustn't miss out the bit in the middle. Now here in terms of a walk action forward in Latin, so here in terms of a forward action in cha-cha and rumba, I'm very mindful of what my leg's doing here. It looks nice and strong, I'm tip of the toe, but I'm very clear with what it's doing here as well. So this point is very important, as is that bit, and of course then the completion of the transfer of weight. Always be aware of what your legs look like as they pass under your body, forward and backwards. So moving to the side in the rumba and cha-cha base actions is very similar. You just don't have the forward action, of course. I'm still going to compress and go through the hip of the standing leg, which releases the knee of the free leg. Normally these things do sometimes start from a position where both feet are underneath you. You can, of course, do this from when the leg's behind you or in front of you, but the leg will always pass underneath you before it moves to the side. So it has a process. So if you've got your feet together, you just relax through the standing leg, the hip goes out, the knee releases, and then you push the leg out to the side. Again, it reaches it goes out straight to its final destination before you then transfer weight across. At this point, still got two straight legs. And then if I'm going to move forward or backwards, you then relax through the standing hip, the knee releases, and then your leg goes either forward or backwards depending on what you're going to do. But even if you're starting from this position or this position, if I do that way, now your leg, if I'm going to move to the right here, I'm going to go through the standing hip, the leg releases, comes underneath me, it passes under my body before it moves to the side. Briefly, what I'm not doing is something like that and then that. There's no stop. It's a fluid action where the leg will pass underneath me and then move to the side into a cucaracha, for instance. And then I've got a nice little transfer weight in the middle here before I then may move to the right. But that might then finish with me moving backwards, for instance. So the legs always pass underneath you. You want, I call it home or neutral. So the legs come underneath you to neutral before they then move into their next position. You wouldn't do something like that. That feels a bit strange because you're bypassing the collection here when you're going to have this beautiful angle again through your legs, through your straight leg and through your bent leg. Angles and curves, so important, really, really important. So that will help you for the majority of the base actions in the rumba. Rumba is essentially made up of lots of walks where you're moving forward, backwards or closing your feet. So as long as you use that process to move from foot to foot, you'll always look like you're doing the right thing. The important thing is that you never bend two knees. That's really important to bear in mind. We'll just look at a cha-cha-cha action now in the cha-cha. So that can be a lockstep or it can be a side-close-side chasse, either forward, backwards, left or right, or diagonally, forward, left, right, backwards. So a cha-cha-cha the essence of a cha-cha-cha is that your legs don't pass or your feet don't pass. It can be a lockstep or a chasse, but the idea is your legs don't pass. That's a cha-cha-cha, essentially. Although you can do cha-cha-cha. There are figures where you do pass your feet, but generally speaking, a cha-cha-cha is when you don't pass your feet. So let's look at a lockstep, because there's lots of those, and I just want to talk about how you use your legs in a lockstep. So if I'm going to do a forward lock on my right foot, so I go through the standing leg, I go through the hip of that left leg, releases my knee, the leg comes forward onto a straight leg. So that's my first step of the locks, that's the cha. Now as the other leg moves in, it's important that I don't bend the front leg at the point of cross. As my legs cross, the front leg is still straight, and this position is called a Cuban cross or a Latin cross, the point at which the legs come together. So I've got 1, 2. Now as I leave, as my weight comes out, the back leg is going to straighten, the front leg is going to bend and then straighten as it gets into position. So what you want to avoid here with a lockstep, which I see a lot of people doing, is that sort of thing happening. So when the back leg comes in, it knocks the front knee. You've got to maintain the strength in your front leg as your legs come together so that you don't get this sort of collapsing position. I'm sure you had that at school. I did. You stood there on one leg like this, having a chat with your friends, and someone comes up behind you and knocks your knee out, and then you almost collapse and fall on the floor. That's what we want to try and avoid here in a lockstep. I got on the other leg. So go through the standing hip, release the knee, leg goes out in front of you, straight leg, Latin cross position from the back foot and the back leg. High heel here, that heel's high off the floor. I push from the back leg, it releases my front foot, and then I finish on 2 straight legs. So there's a moment there where the front leg begins to bend as it moves and the back leg begins to straighten. So momentarily, for a split second, you could be caught on 2 bent knees, but it's a split second. The idea is that as soon as you've come out of the lock here, one leg is straightening and one leg is bending to get to its position. Okay, a leg always bends under your body as it's moving. Now this same process happens here. It's not quite the same because your legs aren't passing in the same way, but this leg as it leaves me is bending to move into its final position. Now a cha-cha-cha moving to the side, again, which is a very common figure. I won't do cha-cha-chas moving forward or backwards, just the sideways ones. So if I'm going to move to the left here, I'm going to go through the standing leg, through my right leg, the hip goes out, knee releases, and I've got cha. So at this point here, almost a bit of Elvis Presley, almost. And then the action changes again. So this leg goes down, this heel and this knee come up, and then I transfer weight again before finishing on 2 straight legs with my left foot to the side. This is actually quite hard to do well. It's not an easy figure, the cha-cha-cha, to do it with beautiful leg action. It's tough. But so with practice and effort and determination, I'm sure you can all do it. So we've got cha, 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 and you finish on 2 straight legs with the heel of the right foot off. And then we could do the same thing moving the other way. So we start with a softening through the left hip here, knee releases. So we've got cha, cha, cha. At the end there, 2 straight legs. So the knee is bent. As you first move, it goes out to the side. That leg then straightens, the other leg bends, like that, cha, cha, like this. That's the idea of that's happening. So again, you've only got one leg straight and one leg bent at any given time. You want to avoid this sort of thing where you've got 2 knees bent, because it doesn't look good. Especially for ladies in Latin, because normally, especially in a competitive environment, ladies, you'll have your legs exposed. Men, you can hide this sometimes with your baggy trousers, which is why I've worn very fitted trousers today, or jeans, so that you can see exactly what my legs are doing. Cha-cha-cha, as I said, it's not easy. So relaxing through the hip, leg goes out to the side, one knee is bent, one leg is straight. Then the whole process switches as you transfer weight across. The other leg straightens, the other knee bends, and then you finish with 2 straight legs at the very end there as you transfer weight completely. So if there's one thing you can take away from this in terms of leg action for cha-cha and rumba, it's that there's one leg that's straight and one leg bends when it passes under your body. When you're stood on a leg, it's straight, and when a leg is away from you, it is also straight. The only time it can bend is when it passes underneath your body on its way to its final destination. Now, everybody's favorite Latin American dance, the samba. It's an absolute killer in terms of technique and style sometimes, the samba. It's a very, very difficult dance to master, and it's not one that I would admit to being a master of. However, I've done an awful lot of it, and I have spent a lot of time practicing it, so I do kind of know what you should be doing if I can't necessarily even do it at full speed in a competition. I haven't done it in a competition for a long time anyway. But it's a tough one, it's difficult. Now, everyone has heard of, or you may well have heard of, the Samba Bounce. Now, a Samba Bounce in basic figures is essentially just a softening of the knees towards the floor like this, and you have this rhythmical bounce through your whole body as you're dancing the basic figures. The idea is not to be going up and down with a Samba Bounce. You do have usage of your feet do go up like this, you do release your heels when you're doing certain actions in samba. However, I'm not trying to go up and down. I'm not producing a rise and fall like I would in a ballroom dance. So again, I'll just look at some of the basic figures that you will encounter in samba and the principles behind what you've got to do with your legs. So a bounce action in samba. So one of the basic figures is literally just to bounce in place. Now, we use this through our medal test for the low grades, just to give you an idea of how to move and also to get you into the rhythm of the dance. It's a Brazilian dance, it's a carnival dance, and it has a lot of life to it. So we need to try and portray that in our movements. Now, moving forward and backwards, so you've got a base action in samba, a forward basic and a backward basic. So as we do this, the samba bounce that comes up out of the floor, you release your heels. As the leg goes out in front of you, you've got a straight leg. So both legs are relatively straight there, but as your weight goes into the foot, your knees will soften. Again, as you rise up and come out, you've got a straight leg, and then as you go into the foot, you again release your knees. So you have a softening. So we've got an up where the legs are straight, we go in and then we soften, straight and soften, straight, soften, straight, soften, straight, soften, straight, soften, straight, soften, straight, soften, etc. Pretty difficult, that. I obviously was going up and down as well. Now, eventually you would control those rise actions through your body. You'd have this lilting sort of rippling effect through your body so that you don't end up being too much like a jack-in-the-box popping up all the time. So that principle of motion with your legs you're going to use through the other figures in samba as well. Through that, I don't feel that my legs are locked like they would be in the cha-cha or the rumba, predominantly because I'm about to use the knees, so both of them at the same time actually as well. So if you lock a joint, it's very difficult then to use that joint quickly. Samba's a fast dance, so you haven't really got the time to go through a locked leg into a soft knee within a matter of beats, or even half a beat in some cases. So it's important that your joints are a little bit softer, a little bit more of a ballroom feeling through your knees here, as opposed to the rumba and the cha-cha where you're going to feel very locked on a standing leg to allow the other leg to come through. The action in cha-cha, whilst it's quite quick, is quite punchy, it's quite sharp. Samba has that sort of feeling about it, but the way in which you're doing it is different. It's almost as fast, or if not quicker in certain places, but there is a softness through your joints. Because of this rhythmical carnival nature of the dance, you want to showcase lots of activity and movement through your body. And that's always going to come from the floor. It's important to dance from the floor up the top of your head. You can't just dance the upper body because it's not connected to what's going on downstairs. Let's take another figure in the samba, a botafogo. So we would have done these sort of things, I'm sure. So this was, if we just do the botafogo, it's going to start on I'm going to do it on my left leg, the knee is flexed, the other leg is straight. I'm not locking that out completely. There is a softness to it, a very slight softness, but the leg is straight. Now, as I bring the leg underneath me, both knees will bend and the heels will be released. So in a pure, beautiful Botafogo, this is your Samba Bounce action, and you're controlling that rise through your body and your knees being flexed at this point here as well. So I've got a feeling of my hips coming forwards, my knees are bent, my ankles are working. As the leg goes out in front of me, it goes onto a straight leg. Tricky to balance. Leg comes underneath, 2 knees bent, leg goes out in front of me on a straight leg, land on it, bent, back leg straight. Then I switch into the little turn, I go up onto 2 straight legs, and then I soften back down again. This is why this is so hard. You've got to do that in a 3/4, quarter one timing, and it's bonkers. Same thing happens here. You go up through the middle, so I've got a tilt through my pelvis, my knees are flexed, my heels are off the floor, the leg goes out in front of me, it goes out straight. I'm beginning to straighten my back leg as well, and I land on a bent leg. The back leg here is straight. It swings out to the side onto a straight leg, straighten the left leg as well, and then I collect my weight at the end onto a bent left leg where I started. So you're constantly passing through straight legs and bent legs here in the Samba, which is why it becomes such a tricky dance to master. Luckily, the same is true in the Samba as it is for the Cha-Cha and the Rumba, in that when you are stood on a foot, you may well be on a bent knee, like I was at the beginning of these Botafogos, but the leg out to the side that is being gestured or shown, presented, whatever, is also straight. It might not be quite as lock straight as it would be in the Cha-Cha and the Rumba, but it's definitely straight. I would not have a bent leg out the back there, because that again doesn't look very good. So I'm having a straight leg. You always got to bear in mind that what you're presenting looks good. So you may well be thinking about what you're stood on, or where you're stood, in this instance, my left leg. But I've still got to be mindful of how I look from behind or to the side here, and what this leg looks like. So this has got to look good. I can't make that look dodgy. So even though I'm stood beautifully or balanced on my left leg, I can't just have that leg out there floppy to the side and not having any purpose in it. I've got to be very mindful of what it does. And then the same will be true when I end up on the other side, having danced my Botafogo. So when you do a Botafogo, and when you do a volta as well, so a volta figure, volta step is when you come across like this. At the point where your legs are coming under your body, that's when you have this, I call a pickup through your body. This is the Samba Bounce action going on in the middle there. So I pick up through my center, my knees are bent at that point before I then cross over into my Botafogo. And then when I do a volta, I have the same feeling that I'm picking up at that point there. I'm releasing the back heel as I cross in front. And the front leg, the front heel is off the floor also. And that's where I'm controlling my Samba Bounce. And I'm not just dolloping down like that. Of course, it's very simplistic to learn the voltas like that. We dollop down. But I'm again very aware of what my legs are doing as I do this. Now, as I step to the side, the leg straightens, then goes back through into a bent position again. When you cross over in a volta, like this, you've got a Latin cross. We had these in the Rumba and the Cha-Cha as well. Now, at the point of cross, that leg is straight. However, you very quickly soften the knee in the Samba to then carry on the leg action and the hip action through the leg. Because we've got this action a lot in Samba, where we have a rotary action going down through the leg, and depending on the direction of travel. So if I'm doing a volta, for instance, to the right, as after I've landed in my Latin cross position, I soften this knee, it goes forward across my foot, and then I rotate my hips to the left as I move to the right. And vice versa, when I move to the left, I rotate my hips around my right foot to the right. But I can only do that if I've got a soft knee. You can't do that if you lock the leg. So a volta in Samba is not danced on a locked front leg. The leg straightens and then goes straight through into a flexed knee as the weight goes into it. So it's quite different in most places to the Cha-Cha and the Rumba. So Rumba and Cha-Cha are a discipline of their own. The Samba very much is a discipline to dance standing there on its own as well. Now a little bit about Paso Doble. Paso Doble is the representation of the Spanish bullfight, and Often you're portraying a role when you're doing the figures in Paso Doble. You'll be either a matador, a toreador, or a Spanish lady. You'll never be the bull. You're never representing the bull. Sometimes the lady is a cape as well. But at no point are you a bull, so we don't need to worry about that. So if you think about the bullfight, not a nice thing to think about, to be fair, but the idea is that essentially the matador, or whoever it is, the toreador, is putting on a show, presenting himself to the audience, say, how amazing am I? Look at me, I'm so amazing, I can hurt this poor bull. So you got to portray that at all times, and you want to try and make sure that you look as good as you can on every single step. Essentially, every single step is a presentation. So the way in which you hold yourself has to be appropriate to do that sort of thing. If you imagine you've got your little Paso Doble jacket on, little bolero jacket, covered in gems, maybe a little hat with some horns on it perhaps. But anyway, so we have to present ourselves in such a way very differently to the other dances. So if we look at some of the base figures, so you've got what's called surplace, which is a position on the spot, and that literally is just a positioning of the feet. It's in place, it means, where you put your feet down in place. Now, a lot of people do this by picking their legs up and stamping or marching on the spot. It isn't that at all. It's supposed to be quite subtle. Now, the idea of this comes from attracting the attention of the bull. So all you're doing is you're pushing the balls of your feet into the floor. So at this point here, I've got pretty straight legs, and I'm just using the balls of my feet pushed into the floor to attract that attention. So I'm not picking my knees up and doing that sort of thing at all. So it's very subtle. It's just the balls of the feet with my weight held towards the balls of the feet and lifted, of course. And your pelvis is slightly pushed forward as well in the Paso. There is a slight change of the posture in the Paso Doble, where you've got a lifted and pushed up forward pelvis in the base figures. When you walk in Paso forwards, can't think of any times you would walk backwards in Paso actually. You may take a step back, but you're not going to walk backwards. So it's very much leading from the pelvis. The pelvis is pulling you forwards, drawing you into that figure, and you delay the back foot. So it's a very pronounced walk in Paso. Again, as I bring the leg underneath, it still bends as it would in the rumba and the cha-cha. The difference being, of course, I'm going forward on a heel. Again, mindful of what my back leg is doing, because I'm presenting that leg as I walk forwards. So it's very delayed and dragged almost behind me. The center is pulling my leg through. Okay, so it's a very pronounced walk with that extra shape through the pelvis. Really, that's all there is to that in the base figures. It's more about an attitude than it is anything else. When you're stood on a foot, it's going to be straight. When the leg's behind you, it's going to be straight. It only bends when it passes underneath you. So moving sideways, you have side steps in Paso Doble to the base figures. I'm still just delaying the movement of that closing foot. And again, it's just emphasizing the attitude that you have in that dance. It's not meant to be overcomplicated in Paso Doble, especially at the base level. You really just need to try and portray the style of the dance, and that is essentially a delayed movement that's coming, a walk for instance, that's coming from your center, which is delaying that back leg. That's both ladies and men as well. So it's not just for the men here or the leaders, it'll be the ladies' actions too. And finally, a little bit of jive. So I suppose I've left the easiest one till last, perhaps you could say, but it's not necessarily as easy. None of it's easy, but the jive I feel is the easiest of them all, providing you get the footwork correct. So if the footwork is correct, the chances are your legs will work how they should in this dance. Now, through the base figures, you've always got a rock basic, essentially, where you have a back replace. So you're going to go back, replace. Now, all I'm trying to do here is make sure that I pick my knees up. So I pick my knees up, providing I've got the right footwork, which is ball flat, it'll do the right thing with the feet, and my legs should look correct. Now, jive's quite fast. I'm sure you will realize that as well. So you need to be light on your feet. And to help you to do that, I'm always feeling as I'm picking my knees up on a lead action. So if I've got, if you think of the rock basic into a bit of chasse left, chasse right. So I'm picking up the knee, depending on how exuberant you want to be, depends how high the knee goes. When you do pick up a knee, you always have to make sure the foot hangs, never pick up the foot with the knee, because that doesn't look quite good. That's like you're trying to kickstart your moped, which is not in any dance. That doesn't happen at any point. So I'm always picking up the knee with the foot pointed down. And the same thing happens on a replace action here when the leg's at the front. Same thing again, toes pointing down, knee comes up. How high you do that is up to you really. The higher the knee, the harder the work, but it sometimes looks a bit better. The most important thing at a base level, of course, is the footwork. And as long as you've got a general idea about what the knees are supposed to do, that's always going to be helpful. I don't ever really think about locked legs at all in jive. You just really haven't got time. The legs pass through a bent stage to a not so bent stage, really. The legs will straighten, they'll never be locked. A locked leg can't absorb weight. Weight will escape from its easiest access point. When your legs are locked like this, like we did in the cha-cha and the rumba, the weight always goes out of the hip. When you've got a soft knee, which you have in jive, it won't produce the same level of hip action, which is great. You don't want to do that because you're not going to be standing on the spot for very long anyway. So a chasse action, so I'm going to go to the right here. I'll lead with the knee, and I have this swinging action at the end of the chasse. So as I'm doing that, I feel like my hips are beginning to swing, and the softness through my legs allows me to do that. And then I'll have the same process here as well, where the hip swings eventually to the left. So as you're going to the right, I lead with my right knee. As I'm going to the left, I lead with my left knee. At the end of the action, I feel like my hip completes that journey. And then as I go to the left, I feel like my hip completes the journey. And that helps me to lower my heel as well, because it's generally the hip weight that's going to lower your heel. So if you get your hip over your foot, push the hip down, it will lower your heel. That's generally the idea, because in jive you need an upward resistance from the floor to keep you buoyant, keep you bouncy, because jive, as I said before, is very quick. I'm sure you all know that. So really the most important thing in jive is to lead with the knee as you're moving either forward, backwards, left or right. So it's on the lead step of an action. Now a back replace, kind of on its own really in that respect, because you're going to lead with both knees. Knee up, knee up. Now as I go to the right here, I'm leading with the right knee leads, transfer, left knee leads, transfer. And that really will create a better visual look immediately for your jive. As I said, I would focus more on the footwork of the jive actions rather than what your legs should do. As long as you do the right footwork and then allow your knees to lead in a given direction when you're going, if you're going to the right knee leads, left knee leads, it'll look much better. And as long as your joints are soft as well, because of the speed, it'll always look a bit better. Just a final little thought about Latin, and which kind of covers all of the dances, perhaps not paso doble necessarily, is that when your weight is on a standing leg, your other leg would always, well, if you're static like this with your legs underneath you, you want the other knee to be bent with the weight on the inside edge of the foot. This always looks much more attractive. So a great little exercise to help you to get your legs looking and working in the right way is to stand perhaps with your heels together and your feet at 5 to 1. You put your weight in one leg and release the other knee so that it rolls, so the weight rolls across the foot and the knee goes forward as the left hip here goes backwards. And then push into the ground with the ball of that right foot and then lock that right leg and release the left knee. Now this will help you to get the transfer of weight and to get your legs working in the right way. I felt a bit like pistons here. Now the knees should go directly forwards on the inside of your feet rather than following your feet, because that isn't a nice look. Yeah, I'm not sure what that is, to be honest. So you need to make sure that the knees go forward into the space that you've created with that V shape with your feet. So I feel like my knees are going into that gap, one at a time of course, and the weight is rolling across the feet. Now that helps you with the rumba actions. The leg comes through, that's where you want to be. If you're doing a cha-cha-cha, that's where I am on a lock step. If I'm doing my jive chasse to the right, that's where I am there as well. Da, da, da. In a samba, I'm still doing the same thing as the leg comes up. It may be a little bit different in samba where you might go to the tip of the toes here as the legs pass. But ultimately, as I finish in this sort of position and that sort of position, this is the same, it's just apart. So if I was to bring my feet together, it would be the same. So this position is really important to find for yourself so that you know how to use your feet and how to use your legs correctly to make them look beautiful through all the movements that you will do. So there we go, there's a little bit of 30 minutes or so on some Latin leg action. Hopefully that was of use. Put it into practice when you can, and I'll see you again soon for episode 7. Thanks very much. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to like it, subscribe, and click the notification bell icon down below to get all of the latest updates to Dizzyfeet TV. And while you're here, check out these videos. But remember, most importantly, to dance more and worry less.